Welcome to the Town of Arlington Redevelopment Board meeting on May 4th, 2026. I'd like to call this meeting to order. My name is Ken Lau and I am the ARB Chair. The other members of the board introduce themselves. Starting with Rachel.
Rachel Zenberry.
Steve Revelak.
Shana Corman Houston.
Vincent Baudouin.
Thank you very much. And we're also joined by Claire Richter and Melissa Lau. Our first agenda on items, review the minutes, meeting minutes from April 27th. Do any of the board members have any changes to the minutes? Sorry, Vincent.
I do not.
Okay. Steve? Rachel?
I do. So on the page 2, which refers to the public hearing in I think of several paragraphs that start with Ms. Zenberry. If you could take out the last sentence, Ms. Zenberry said that because the actual use for the building will not be retail, she thinks somewhat smaller windows are okay. I had actually made a comment about how they had proposed it to be retail and then changed it, but was not approving it because they are not using it for retail.
Retail, got it. Okay.
With that amended thing, do we have a motion, please?
I move that the minutes for April 27, 2026 be approved as amended.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Vince,
Yes.
Shannon,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Rachel?
Yes.
I'm a yes too. Okay, now moving on to the second agenda is the presentation and discussions for the comprehensive plan. Draft plan was posted with the agenda and the board had a chance to review it. I'd like to ask the representatives of staff to introduce themselves and take us through the plan.
Sorry for being late. I was actually, in fact, in the wrong building. Yes, I thought I was in the right one. So I'm Steve Carney. I am the principal on this, and I'll let Phil introduce himself, the more important person, the project manager.
I'm Phil Chafing. I'm a senior associate at Stantec, urban designer and planner, and have been the project manager for our project team. So tonight, Steve and I just wanted to provide a broad overview of the comprehensive plan document that was posted with the agenda. It's very similar to the draft plan that was posted for review several weeks ago as well, with a few changes in a couple of places. But we wanted to start off by talking a little bit about the community engagement process that's happened over the last almost 18 months. So I think that's an important part of this, to understand that the team and especially the committee has done a lot of work to try to hear from a lot of people throughout this process. And then the second part will just provide a kind of a high-level overview of the comprehensive plan structure and a summary of some of the strategies. We won't go through those in any great detail, but obviously if you have questions, happy to hear those. So Steve, do you want to start off with just kind of an introduction here of the overall process, and I can...
Absolutely. Yeah, so I mean, we've been doing this for 18 months. We're getting very close to the end. It started with the visioning, the existing conditions, all of that. Then we get into the topics, plan development. We have meetings and workshops and surveys at every step of the way. The numbers right here is the, it's great. There's a slide that thanks the steering committee. They were a huge help in getting this up. But these, 6,300 website visitors, all of the 3,400, comments and votes on the interactive map that we had. And then, 200 plus, we know there was more than that, at in-person events and just different ones, the workshops, the focus groups. We kept on going, we kept on collecting information and polls. And so we really had a big number, which helps us, really feel and demonstrate that a wide and diverse group of residents were really participating in many different ways throughout this, which was, really to see. Yeah, as I just sort of mentioned, the different events that we had, the interactive public workshops working together around tables, the committee pulling together and doing their own outreach, farmers market, national night out, summer concerts, beer gardens, town day 2025, these different focus group discussions. And again, as I mentioned, the project website. So we always try to hit in every different way that we can and be creative when we can. So again, I knew we had a slide coming up, but what I will say, in addition to thank you, I've been doing this for more than 15 years, and this was probably the most active steering committee that we've worked with. I mean, they were involved, without a doubt, which was great to see. So, yeah, and then, just what they had done, the 20+ events attended by the committee members. They were going out doing paper surveys. They facilitated the focus groups, so the different topic focus groups and areas, and were, showing up at all of the public workshops and open houses. So it was just really great to be able to work with them. And, really just the initial events, from the draft plan review, it was a little bit lighter than we would have liked, but still over 35. And we had, again, online, 1,100 unique website visitors beginning March 23rd. And then they were downloading the plan. We were getting more comments. We got, 50+ over 100 more comments on this draft plan. So again, the community was shaping and weighing in all the way through this entire process. And, really definite broad support for the economic development, historic and cultural connectivity, public facilities and services. I think we just wanted to be clear, particularly on some of the comments, there were diverse views on several land use and housing strategies, support for many other ones, but, for as many who really want to see a higher diversity of housing, there were definitely some people who said, I like my single family world. So we just, we want to acknowledge, we want to make sure that that's in there. And, and then the open space and development, that was a tension, if you will, or, a tug of war throughout this whole process. So you have people in the different sides that really want to focus on development, others are really on open space. It's classic. It happens in every comprehensive planning, effort that we do. That's why we try to get as many people participating as possible. And all of those people bring what is most important to them. So those come up. But again, with the amount we got in, we feel very comfortable with having the community truly lead the visioning and ultimately guiding the development.
Now, I'll say before we switch over to this too, that a lot of those, the comments that we were getting in this final phase, there really was nothing new or surprising that we heard from there. I think this themes that, particularly around housing diversity, the people who supported, encouraging more types of housing in different neighborhoods, were pointing to, affordability goals. You could build one 3,000 square foot single family house or triplex with 3,000 square foot units. They were also connecting it to equity goals and goals for the town to be a welcoming community. So there's different types of housing for people throughout the community, as well as sustainability goals. And then people, as Steve was saying, who were less supportive of those strategies were talking a lot about concerns about neighborhood character. That's something that design standards can help address. And there were some comments noting that, recognizing the town does have some standards, but, feeling from their view that, okay, we wish they were doing a little bit more. So I think that it's very helpful feedback to take into consideration. A lot of this can be sort of ironed out in the implementation phase as well. And I think that's really the important part of this, is that this is not, it's a finished comprehensive plan document, but it's not a static thing that is going to be unchanged for the next 10 years. Through the implementation process, it is meant to be a living document that can evolve with continued input. So to provide then an overview of the comprehensive plan structure, it's essentially 3 main sections. The first 4 chapters are kind of setting the stage, talking about the role of a comprehensive plan, summarizing the community engagement that we just spoke about, presenting the community vision, which is really sort of the overall framing statement for the plan document, and then highlighting some of the trends influencing Arlington. And that's drawn from our work in the Arlington Today document, which was part of our existing conditions phase of work. It's been appended to this kind of final draft version of the plan. It was previously a separate document, but it's part of that now at the end. And then there are the goals and strategies chapters that lay out the sort of strategies to help achieve the goals for each of the topics, and then it concludes with the implementation section. So within each of the topic chapters, we just wanted to note two sections in particular, because it's very easy sometimes to look at one topic of a comprehensive plan in isolation, to just look at housing by itself or transportation or open space. And the plan document really tries to make the point that each of these topics relates in different ways to other topics in the plan. They're all interconnected. And so as the town moves into the implementation phase, we wanted to make sure that this approach stays front of mind, that as you're looking at housing, think about the transportation goals, the sustainability implications, the open space and natural resources impact, and vice versa, thinking about open space and recreation, how do people get to those spaces? What does that mean for runoff or urban heat island mitigation? And then relation to plan themes, that's the next piece of this. There were two broad themes that came forward from a lot of the community input we got during the visioning phase early in the process. And then as we continue to work with the committee, really did sort of establish themselves as kind of overarching themes that touch on almost every topic within the plan. First of those is supporting equity and diversity within Arlington. So that speaks to, in the vision statement, Arlington being a welcoming community for all people. It speaks to quality of life. It speaks to things like physical accessibility, but also language access to programs. It speaks to different types of housing for people in different life stages and different family and household sizes, as well as then access to resources, public services, public spaces, and things like that. So that's noted in each of the topic chapters. And then integrating sustainability and resilience as well. That's not a separate standalone chapter, but it's part of each of the topic chapters. And that is really to help embed the town's goal to achieve net zero status by 2050. And so that is, kind of traditional sustainability, green design, green infrastructure, sustainable building, but it's also then tying in economic resiliency and sustainability. How can the local economy adapt over time? Social resiliency, the connections that people make in their neighborhoods and at local events and things like that. And so each of these are noted in the topic chapters as well. So this is the vision statement that is in the comprehensive plan document. This really came from our first round of input in the visioning phase. It is based on the 2015 master plan's comprehensive plan vision, but then updated from what we were hearing in this process. We wanted to make sure that it was still aligning with what people hope to see Arlington become in the next 10 years. And so it speaks again to being a welcoming town that supports a diverse population and a variety of housing options, fosters thriving business districts and vibrant neighborhoods, protects the natural environment, and encourages a strong shared sense of community and civic involvement. So this was the big overall vision statement. For each of the topics, there are a series of goals that are then supported by the strategies in each of the chapters. From the next few slides here, we'll provide just an overview of the strategies in each of the chapters. As I said, we won't go through every single one, but if you do have questions or comments, please let us know. So the land use chapter, there were several different approaches here, but a lot of this was recognizing this relates to a number of chapters, economic development, open space as well, that Arlington has a fixed amount of space. And so to make thoughtful decisions about the future of land uses in this case, so looking at redevelopment opportunities, whether that's for more commercial jobs or more housing, particularly on parcels that you might be considered underused today, the single-story building with a large parking lot, things like that. Looking at the Minuteman Bikeway as a unique community asset that can be both an economic and a housing amenity. Looking at the role of town-owned property to advance community goals, especially housing, but also business and public space as well. And then zoning as an implementation tool. So there are strategies talking about the project review timeline, the types of uses that are involved, also considering integrating local serving businesses within neighborhoods to help bring more amenities closer to residents. Within the economic development chapter, the biggest kind of overarching strategy here is to develop a strategic economic development plan. Something that really gets into the details of the local economy, the strengths and the constraints of the town, and identify some implementation strategies tailored to that. There are also strategies here about streamlining the regulatory and permitting process to support entrepreneurs and local businesses. Another strategy about a placemaking plan to help support the business districts as a place that attract customers to come to them, as well as improving the town's marketing and communications as a place to both attract new businesses and retain the businesses that are here today. In the housing chapter, the strategy that had a lot of that diversity of opinion was about amending the zoning to allow a greater range of housing types in more locations. So specifically considering duplexes in the R0 and R1 neighborhoods, really continuing the conversations that have been happening over the last several years to try to connect those to some of the other goals that residents have. There's a lot of support about identifying stable recurring funding sources to support affordable housing development, aligning housing policy with net zero climate goals, and helping to increase the development and creation of accessory dwelling units or ADUs. On the connectivity or the transportation chapter, adopting Vision Zero to help eliminate pedestrian and bicycle fatalities. This was something that we heard a lot about, especially in the visioning phase and in the interactive map on the website, but very specific concerns about different intersections, making them safer for all users, bicyclists and pedestrians, as well as transit riders, people in wheelchairs or pushing strollers, and drivers as well. To review the overnight parking ban in relation to other housing and economic development goals. This was another one that had a kind of viewpoints on both sides of that particular strategy, and just an example of where in the implementation phase, continued discussion can help really chart the path forward for that. Looking at potential new connections and improving existing connections between Massachusetts Avenue and Summer Street. Expanding the parking benefits districts within the business districts to help support streetscape improvement, public realm, making a connection here to, for example, the placemaking plan in the economic development chapter, and then advocating for transit improvements with the MBTA. That was another sort of subset of comments throughout the process that we heard a lot of interest in, but an example of something where the town's role is not to necessarily make those transit improvements. The town doesn't run the buses. But the role can be to advocate for some of those improvements that residents identify. Historic and Cultural Resources chapter, strategies here about updating the Arts and Culture Plan, which is now approaching 10 years old, creating a cohesive marketing and communications approach for local assets, a sense that there's a lot here, but the communications both to residents as well as a broader audience isn't always consistent. There's a chance that people don't even know about a lot of events that they might be interested in. Certainly the preservation of the town's historic buildings, integrating public art in both public spaces as well as private opportunities within development, and then addressing some of those physical and programmatic barriers to historic and cultural resources. The natural resource and open space chapter, this does have a lot of kind of sustainability and resilience themes because it is a natural place for that. For the town to continue to be a leader in sustainability and resilience, the Net Zero Action Plan, which is actively being updated right now, is one example of that. Strategies about mitigating the heat island effect, reducing localized flooding through green infrastructure, managing invasive species, improving water quality in the ponds and streams, both in Arlington and the ones on the borders that require cooperation with neighboring municipalities. Maintaining open spaces, thinking about natural spaces within those. A lot of support for the urban tree canopy as a tool to do a lot of different things, from water and shade and just character in general. And then the last chapter here, public facilities and services. Again, continuing progress towards the town's net zero goals, addressing athletic field usage and maintenance. This was another one that we heard a lot of comments about. The field study, which is underway now, is going to provide sort of the first implementation step to identify some ways to begin to address that. Modernizing town-owned spaces for greater use, so places like Town Hall and the auditorium space there. And then preparing plans for town-owned facilities and progressing towards zero waste in the future. So again, just a quick overview of some of the the strategies within the plan. And then the final chapter is the implementation matrix. This is where all of the strategies from the plans are then assigned to a lead, one or more partners in a lot of cases, an initial time frame, which is subject to change based on funding opportunities or changing needs over time, and then a note of whether or not that strategy may require town meeting action as well. So again, to emphasize that this is a document that's going to continue to have public input throughout it. In most cases, the lead for the strategies is a town department, and partners are either other departments or it may be boards and committees as well, because we know there's a lot of volunteer engagement, a lot of civic activism in those boards and committees, and those are important partners for a lot of the strategies. So that chapter, it also outlines the roles of the different bodies that you see there. It also has a section that identifies some near-term priorities. These are, in some cases, things that are underway now, in other cases, things that we heard a lot of interest or support, or perhaps differing opinions on throughout the process, and can be a way to help demonstrate progress in the next couple of years to show, again, that this is a plan that is a guiding action. There's also a section that identifies all of the strategies that have a zoning component, so it pulls those all into one place to note that as an implementation tool. And then finally, the chapter does note that some of these strategies will require additional funding, and we know that right now that is a big question. And so those funding requests should be considered relative to other needs. In some cases, the timing reflects that. For example, we've heard both in the course of interviews with town staff and from the community an interest in seeing more capacity in certain town departments. And we know that hiring more staff in the next couple of years might be hard. And so those are identified as, mid or longer term strategies that over time, hopefully, there are more resources to be able to do that. So that's the quick overview of the draft comprehensive plan document. Before we wrap up, I just want to again repeat our thanks to everybody who participated in the process, everybody who came to a meeting, who filled out a survey online, who talked to committee members at one of the local events last year. All of that input was fantastic. Thank you to the committee members who were engaged in meetings every month, helped a lot with the community outreach, and to town staff as well. They were a huge help. So with that, we'll turn it back over.
Including Sarah.
Yes.
And others who are all been here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's turn this to the board and see if there's any questions or any comments. Vincent?
Thank you for presenting. For someone who's occasionally a cynic about the comprehensive planning process, I thought you did a good job of capturing both some of the unique things about Arlington, but also just the moment that we're in, which is why we need to do an update and not rely on a plan that's 10 years old. I have a couple of just typo comments that I'm just going to send by email to Claire rather than bore you with them in the meeting. And I have one substantial comment, which is that, first of all, I think you integrated many of the comments we said previously, so I appreciate that. Our 2015 master plan talked specifically about reducing our parking requirements, and especially within the context of our mixed-use districts, business areas, and looking at that as a strategy to get more development, more space for development, more walkable or transit-oriented development. And the new plan doesn't say that so explicitly. So I thought that it might be interesting, specifically in the land use section, to add a little bit of language. LU6 talks about conducting an audit of the zoning bylaw to align with modern uses and allow greater flexibility, especially in the business and industrial districts. So that's in there. And what I thought we might want to do is add a couple of bullet points under that, describing how we might continue to evaluate our off-street parking requirements and look at ways to reduce or eliminate them, either wholesale or in a sort of flexible way based on proximity to transit or other context things. So I'm going to send, again, in the same email to Claire, the kind of 2 bullet points that I drafted. That was my only request. Otherwise, I think you've done a nice job of capturing what's going on in town. Certainly, you don't take a firm stance on every issue, but as you explained, there's often kind of an underlying disagreement or tension, and we're not all of the same mind in town as to how we should do things. And I think overall, I'm pretty impressed with the document, and I think it'll be a nice foundation for the many plans we have to develop apparently going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shannon.
So thank you. This is a great document. I appreciate your work and the work of Steve and Ken and others. Appreciate, as Vince said, that many of our previous comments have already been incorporated. I had only one suggestion, which is I flagged it as LU6, but it shows up in various places. We've talked as a board over the past year on and off about how the code in Arlington has become robust, to put it kindly, and perhaps a barrier to development at times. And you referred throughout to places where a code audit or a code review could be a tool to move things forward. And I thought expanding upon that and giving some context for where we are now and why would be helpful to just sort of elevate that issue a little bit. So that was my one major thought. So that's all.
Thank you. Steve?
So I've actually been living with this thing for the last 18 months. I would like to give some kudos to Stantec. When we were doing public engagement for our MBTA communities planning effort, one of my primary goals was data analysis and going through comments and categorizing them and so on. And I was really glad to have you doing it and not me. But overall, I'm rather happy with the way it turned out. I think we got a good cross section of input, and ideally, I think if there's a little something in there for everyone, we would have, we should be happy with the outcome. So thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Richard?
Just want to echo again, I think that this is an impressive body of work, and I appreciate all of the public input that you solicited, and the reflection as well about, on some places where there was alignment and in some places where there's still a wide-ranging, there are wide-ranging perspectives that I think we need to still recognize as a town. So I appreciate that. One of the items that I think we wrestle with as a board, and I know that the department wrestles with, is this issue of balance, right? So we know that there are often competing, sometimes complementary pushes for additional residential as well as commercial space in town to improve and augment our streetscape, but also don't get rid of my parking for economic growth while maintaining, some of our village character. So that's something that and I think I had sent this comment in an earlier draft, that if there's any way to make that more evident in the comprehensive plan. I think we allude to it a lot, but I'd almost love for it to be as clearly articulated as equity and sustainability as one of the tenets that we're constantly wrestling with, and that quite frankly, for us to be successful, we need to find and discover over the implementation of this plan where the balance lies for the town of Arlington. So I just wanted to offer that, and again, perhaps that is as much for the board in our usage of this plan, as opposed to, pulling that in, but that's just something that I was really struck with as I was reading through a lot of these documents, that I'd love to see that explicitly identified. I think that there were a couple of items that I just wanted to highlight. For example, LU5, I think that's a great place where I think balance is something that is important for us to look at, streamlining the development review timeline and process, but at the same time, we know how much work because of the developers. Because of the type of developers that we have working in this town, this board and the planning department, in order for the project to become contextual, there's a lot of investment that this board still needs to make in order for those projects to become projects that can be successful in Arlington. So while streamlining is important, that balance of ensuring that the work still can take place and isn't shortchanged, that this board and the planning department do to make these better projects for the town. I would hate to see that sacrifice. So just a comment I wanted to make there. LU, let's see, LU10, that was regarding allowing light commercial uses in residential zoning districts. I think that is a very specific, I think that's too specific of a recommendation. That was something that I think a resident brought to town meeting last year. It didn't receive a lot of support, but the board discussed, for example, looking for commercial uses that might be appropriate around civic locations and schools and other places that perhaps, also might reside within residential districts. But to me, that one seemed to overreach a bit in terms of its specificity. So just wanted to call that out. Let's see.
Which one was that, Rachel?
LU10.
Then. That was the last one.
That was regarding allowing commercial uses in residential zoning districts. That it was very broad. Another item that I wanted to mention, let's see, is I think some of the names were, let me just make sure that I have H1. I appreciate the way that this was framed in terms of allowing a greater range of housing types in a variety of locations throughout the town. I think that the two bullet points, again, overreach in specificity, because the board, even recently, I think, has identified some other tactics that could achieve this same goal, such as really looking at the where the underlying zoning and the existing housing stock do not match, and then how to build out from those areas rather than perhaps a broad swath, which again, I think you several times in presenting back to us identified was a very sensitive topic within them. So I think to put that in as a specific bullet point may overreach where today the town is going. It may be the end outcome, but I think allowing a range of possibilities to be evaluated would be helpful for the town. let's see. One here. H5 also, I had a challenge with, which is extending the features of multifamily housing overlay districts to business districts. That is in conflict with some of the work that we're currently doing in business districts, or it may be in conflict, right? So we're doing some work with the business districts to create specific specific districts for those business districts, and they may or may not include some of the characteristics of the multifamily housing overlay districts. I just think H5 is overly specific, and it's covered in other ways in the document. And I just wanted to mention something about the prioritization, which I know is such a challenging thing to do. You know, we have all these wonderful ideas and we want to do them all at once, and it's hard to, put them in the short, mid, and long range. I just wanted to say that I agree with the short priority items that have been identified. I would be remiss if we didn't acknowledge the change that places on the DPCD and the ARB, given that we are in some ways challenged with making meaningful progress on initiatives, given that 6 months out of the year we are beholden to preparing for and holding town meeting, which is, I think, a real challenge that the town needs to wrestle with if these are the goals that we would like to see as a town. I think that figuring out a way to streamline that process will allow the Department of Planning and Community Development and the Redevelopment Board to have much greater impact in being able to deliver on these goals. So I just wanted to say that. And I also think that in a high priority item, I would include the study of the redevelopment of the Russell Commons lot.
Yes.
Into a mixed use development. Maybe I missed that. I didn't see that as a short.
Short term, or do we put it in there for a longer term, but it should be short.
I think that, and again, this is just my point of view. I really feel strongly that is when we talk about balance, to me, that has the opportunity to deliver on so many of the goals and to demonstrate what a balanced approach might look like to holding all of these initiatives together and trying to determine how to best use one of the most valuable parcels that the town owns to deliver on this. So again, really appreciate it. I thought this was wonderful, and to be able to get into this level of discourse, I think is really appreciated. So thank you.
Thank you, Richard. I also like to thank you for a great job here. I already sent my comments to you over the weekend, where that's, I'm not gonna go over any of those comments. I do have a couple of quick side notes that I wouldn't mind talking to you guys about. You guys have good third-party representation of what you surveyed over the town, and so I just want to see what your opinion is on what the town thinks. Because, we hear our side, and we have our people we talk to and neighbors. But based on what you've seen and the surveys you've done and people you talk to, are generally people want growth in this town, or have this sort of two opposites in this thing. I'm sure you experienced it. So I just want to see from your experience, is that a minority, a majority? Which way do you think the town is growing now? Okay, because I've been at this for about 11 years now, and I've seen it change. But that's my thing. I want to ask you what your opinion is and how you see it. What the flavor, I guess, of towns right now. And it's good feedback for us to understand, because that's what we represent, the town, not us, our own opinions. So do you have something to comment on that? And I know it's kind of an off-center question there, but
I could start and Phil could probably get into better details. I think, you asked the question about how many are pro-growth. And what we certainly heard, which leads to growth, is certainly pro-housing diversity. We need more options. We need more choices than what we have. So we do need more housing in that way, which leads to, yes, we support the growth. And the same with, the commercial and the retail and the options for them. We need to expand, increase all of that so that we have, more places to go. All of that is leading to pro-growth. I was surprised at how few voices you heard about freeze everything, lock the doors, don't let anyone else in. And that's very different from just community we were just working in, where that was more of a, close down streets, stop. We've grown too much. And that was a real, concern coming from a whole bunch of people. So, but Phil?
Yeah, I think I would say there were not many people saying like, oh, grow a lot. But I think as Steve said, there was a lot of interest in seeing more businesses in the business district that serve residents here, recognizing that part of that is having more people who live here. That theme of being a welcoming community where people who want to live here can find a place that's suitable and affordable for them. That was definitely one of our quick poll questions late last summer asked about, I forget exactly how it was phrased, but one of the most popular choices was connecting housing to equity and being a welcoming community. So I thought that was interesting that it seemed that a lot of people responded to that poll, and that was 200 or 300 responses, I think, made that connection out of 6 or 8 different choices. I think the concerns that we heard about growth are kind of things that you would some sort of expect, like more people, it's going to be more traffic, and how do we deal with that? The design character and quality, to your point, was something that other people pointed to, looking at, a couple of projects that they didn't like for, whatever reason, and saying we can't have more of that. So I would say it's hard to make a broad characterization, in part because, in any survey or outreach effort you do, you're still only getting a small segment of the overall population. And a lot of times, whether that means tacit, approval of like, yeah, I generally agree with this, so just keep doing what you're doing. I'm not going to take the time to fill a survey out. Or people who are just very busy, have competing priorities. So I think it's hard to draw kind of broad conclusions, but those were definitely things that we heard come up from the visioning phase through the strategy development, viewing some of the themes, particularly around housing and economy, the local economy, and then continuing through to the draft plan comments.
it's good to know, just having a third party, just having some feedback on that, as opposed to just, because we experience the same thing you guys experience as far as, the diversity of comments and everything else. And I just want to see, are we acknowledging all the different people's opinions? Yeah. Thank you very much for your hard work. This looks really good. We'll go back to the board for a minute. There are some changes that are somewhat substantial, I think, right? Do we feel that we have enough to vote on this today? Or do you need another review of this? Keep in mind, if we do not vote on today,
We will need to meet a week from today on May 11th to vote on it. We can certainly send Stanpic back and me and Sarah back to take another stab at it. And I wrote down everybody's comments here, and we have everybody's comments, recorded on the owl to better reflect what you guys are thinking. If we do meet a week from Monday before town meeting, a week from tonight before town meeting, we will cancel the meeting on the 18th. We have nothing planned for that night, and I know that at least one member is likely to be absent. So I don't know how you guys.
I just want to see how you guys feel about how you want to proceed with this. Steve?
If we had to take something like trade-offs and do separate call-outs as they're done for diversity and equity, that would be a significant change. I think that each section talks about relationship to other plan elements, and I think there's some of that in there. But that is a fairly substantive change. I'm not sure, I don't agree about some of a couple of the specific strategies being more specific or being too specific, and H1 in particular, just because those are in our housing production plan. I assume that's where you took them from. And I don't read it, what's there is applying to, the entire district, but, it could apply to subsets as easily as, a whole.
Okay.
I agree with Steve. It's very hard for a comprehensive plan to make interesting or creative or bold claims because it's trying to make so many people happy. But like H1 is actually proposing a nice incremental change to our housing policy. I feel the same way about LU10, which is proposing a kind of bold idea about allowing a little bit more neighborhood commerce. Having that in the plan doesn't mean we're going to go out and do that right away, but it's like, it would be a shame to me to water those things down. So I'd love to see those stay in.
Just to note that the 2015 plan recommended allowing mixed use with residential in the industrial district. So yeah, it's okay that some things will not get done.
Okay. Rachel, you want to have anything?
Oh, I think that they personally, again, should come out. I think that, as I said, I think that they're overreaching and too specific. I think, that we should not have elements that we don't think should be implemented in the comprehensive plan. And I think that they're both well covered, in terms of potential strategies in other ways. And
Okay.
that's my perspective. Again, my comment about balance, again, while I wish that had been included at a larger piece, I agree. I think that reworking each one of those sections is significant at this point, and it, I would just like to see it acknowledged. It can be a statement.
Okay.
I think it's something that you come right up to the edge of saying, and it's something that we talk a lot about. But again, if the others feel that it is the implicitness is explicit enough for you, then that is certainly not something that I would push on. But I do feel strongly about some of the changes that I suggested for some of the specifics and about including Russell.
That's important.
Yeah,
Yes.
especially
Okay.
Russell.
But do you feel like this is substance enough where we can vote on it today, or do you want to wait for, you said a week, right? Or a week? Do we see those changes again before we vote on it? I just want to see how comfortable is. I got two right now, and I'm not sure how you're comfortable. Are you comfortable with just making suggestions, having to make the changes, and then vote on it based on what we said here, or what we agree upon here, or do you want it to come back again? Certainly, I'm kind of on the fence right now, but I want to see what the board thinks. Shannon?
So, so I think what I'm hearing, Rachel, if you're comfortable with sort of a statement as opposed to reworking, that makes good sense to me. The Russell Common Lot, it sounds like everyone really thinks that needs to be in there. And then, but I'm not sure that is it, Rachel, I noted LU10, H1, H5, am I missing any other specific measures?
Yes, I think you have, and LU5, again, just making sure that we were clear that we are not, and again, that could be more of a comment for the board and the planning department in the implementation, again, without trying.
Yeah.
There's the balance of trying to not be too specific, but I just would like to make sure that the board recognizes that in our goal to streamline processes that we, we had a lot of discussion, for example, around site plan review and the fact that we, while we are streamlined that process by introducing site plan review, we did not want to give up the review of the context, the review of the design of the projects in context with the neighborhoods, which I think every neighbor has appreciated from every one of those projects who has come in front of us. So again, I would just want to make sure that we are aligned, which, again, I hope the board
I think
is.
we are relying on the appropriateness of architecture.
That's right. So
but-
again, whether or not we feel that belongs in,
It could be a comment like you said earlier.
that's right.
Okay, I think that is appropriate. Makes me feel more comfortable that is framed in that comment. So
Okay.
it's there. And what was the other ones? The Russell Common one, I think we should definitely add that.
Definitely.
And what you had for other one?
So LU10, the light commercial uses, I'm okay with it because the very first word of this is explore. So
That's fair.
explore allowing.
Okay, I think I'm okay. Is it, Steve, are you okay with that? Okay, so what's the other one?
So it was H1 and H5. So H1, Steve, you said both of these come from the housing production.
Yeah, and
plan?
I think it was, well, there's a variation. So the first bullet, allow two-family and duplexes in R0 and R1 is in the housing production plan. The one about three-family and townhouses, I think what might have been in R2. It was, the set of districts is different, but it's the general idea is there.
Okay. If it's already in the housing production plan,
Or, perhaps it could be worded examples of missing middle housing to explore.
Yep. And again, with H5, extend features, but could we again say explore extending features? So that we're really, instead of just going and taking action on these things, we're gonna.
Yeah, it says zoning aspects to consider extending to other districts
Are you okay with that?
and 2 bullets.
Can I get that in?
I just feel that H5 is covered. I mean, we talk about, for example, there are other elements that talk about.
What page is that on?
87 of the PDF.
82 of the actual document, 87 of the
Two,
PDF.
okay.
Again, if the majority of the board feels that, those should stay in, I,
Hey, Steve, I'm in town meeting right now, okay? I don't know. Sorry, I was,
let's see,
sorry about that.
no worries. I think, again, that may have been in that housing production plan, but we've learned a lot and we've, in terms of H1, and I think that we have recently had some discussions that perhaps it's not allowing them by right in those districts, but it's actually rezoning these parcels. So again, I just think that
Okay,
it's too
all right, that's fair.
specific to, especially given what I felt was kind of a block in some of our more recent discussions. So that's why I
So you want
am
to
in
take that
favor
out?
of the bullet points. That would be my preference. Again,
Is that, consistent of the board? Take that out?
that's H1.
H1.
the bullet points, because I think we,
So
Bullet pointed with one.
perhaps a more,
Second one, first one.
perhaps a more generic way of framing it would be to consider allowing two-family, three-family, and townhouse dwellings in additional areas.
I think that's fine. That's perfect.
Great.
You guys have that down or?
Bill always gets things written down.
Okay, well, we'll have it on our meeting then, so if you want to grab.
I appreciate a prolific note taker. Sorry.
I just want to make sure that if we do agree about something, then we do vote on it. All the
All the
changes
changes are made.
are made so that we can vote on it. you know.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
with H5, and I mean, this is only a year to go on. But we're kind of running an A/B test for mixed use permitting. We have two different regimes.
Yeah.
And in the B districts, we've permitted one project. It got 1,000 square feet of space, give or take. And in the multifamily district, we've gotten 3, and it's a total of probably a little over 8,000.
Mhm.
So I mean, I think it's worth examining what, well, yeah, there are different permitting regimes, there are different dimensional area requirements. And properties tend to turn over at a different rate, but an 8-to-1 ratio is, I mean, that, to me, that's attention getting. And I'm wondering if that's worth, I think that would be worth looking at least, keep track of it for another year or two, or another 2 or 3. Give it another year or two, and then maybe we want to do something with it.
But does it have to be here?
Doesn't have to be here.
So what do you want to do with this H5?
Again, I think that the intent of this is covered through some of our goals in the economic development section and through land use.
So you just want to take out the 2 bullets?
I wanted to take out HC5. Or, I'm sorry, H5,
The whole thing?
the whole thing. Again, because our entire approach to multifamily housing overlay district was to exclude the business districts because we are trying to maximize the commercial development in those business districts. So by then going back and extending those features, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Again, in the sake of balance and the very, I mean, again, if we look at the percentage of land that is zoned business in town to not, from an economic development standpoint, really concentrate our efforts on trying to maximize that usage, to me would be a miss for us as a town.
Yeah, I guess it's for, oh, sorry.
Sorry. Well, so I was gonna say, Steve said something kind of compelling, which is that the MBTA districts have yielded a fair bit of commercial space, and I'm wondering if an approach might be to put in one of the economic development strategies that we're going to assess the successes of the MBTA districts in order to, I don't know, do something, revise the business district zoning to maximize commercial growth or commercial space. The wording is not quite right, but I don't know which strategy. which
Isn't the
economic
last issue
development
that's on the board for this right now? If not, because we got to get to additional warrant articles before town meeting starts. And just at least have some comments on that. And it's already 7:30 now.
Yeah, I would just say that LU7 talks about monitoring new construction and multifamily housing overlay districts to evaluate the diversity of housing types and levels of affordability achieved, perhaps you could also add and commercial, commercial space. And to me, that would cover what you were trying to do in HC 5.
Well, there's no other bullet point, though, that really addresses the idea of creating like mixed use and multifamily developments. I was trying to
But
scan the,
that's already allowable in the business districts, multifamily develop, mixed use development rather.
right? And so what we're talking about here is the specific measures, affordable housing, supporting higher threshold of affordable housing, and loosening the lot size, frontage, and open space requirements. Yeah, it's pretty specific. I suppose we could. I don't want to take out the entire kind of concept because this language is repeated multiple times throughout the document of encouraging mixed income multifamily development. And if we take this out and also take out all that language, I think we're taking out what a lot of people have been asking for in this document. If we were to eliminate H5, but to keep some of the language about supporting mixed income multifamily development in the document, I think I just don't want to make a big change like this. This point, when you read the document, things get repeated, and it's like 5 or 10 different instances where it refers to this point. And it would be a shame to just strike it because we have to rush to get to town meeting articles.
Well, let's somebody take a vote on this right now on that. One is to eliminate all of H5. One is not to touch it at all, and the other one is to strike the bullets and just leave the generic phrase there. Is there enough? And are there any other options people want to talk about?
Well, it would be to strike H5 and amend LU7 to include the commercial aspects there. And to your point, I think the mixed income, I think LU7 is already doing the work that we're saying in H5, but without burdening the business districts with some of the residential requirements without burdening them with the entire overlay, mixed use overlay as of right language.
I don't think this is a change. I think if I read this is encourage. So I would think it's just another consideration. I think what you're saying, Vince, right, is it's okay to say it more in one place.
It says encourage, it says to consider extending. It's not prescriptive. It's just.
So.
Yeah, I just don't think it's appropriate
Okay.
in the business districts.
All right, so let's leave it as the 3 choices. And can I just have a quick vote on what people want of the 3 choices, and we just move on from there? I'm sorry, but we gotta keep this going. Otherwise, we're gonna we're just gonna have to wait until next week. How do you feel?
I'd like to leave it as is.
Okay. Okay. Maybe 3 choices is not a good thing. It's what up to.
If we don't get a majority, we have to go to binary choices.
On balance, I would either leave as is or delete the bullets for H5, but not delete the whole thing.
Okay.
I agree with Shana.
And I guess I already know your opinion, Rachel. I don't wanna.
Just Claire suggested, what if we struck?
The business districts, extend features of multifamily housing overlay districts to encourage mixed income multifamily development.
Again, my issue is business districts, so
Right.
if you got rid of business districts, I think I would be fine with it. Yeah.
Sounds like we have a consensus here. Okay. Perfect. So you got that? Get that change? After that? No. Okay. So I'm taking that everybody's okay with these administrative changes, and we don't have to have another meeting to look at this, and that the changes we requested you guys have,
changes you requested, we will make prior to your.
you have documented and you
Yeah.
will make it and it'll be submitted.
Document for post overview.
Yes.
So I didn't read out the 2 bullet points that I had earlier proposed for
Sorry.
parking reductions,
Sure.
and that is a somewhat significant change. Should, can I just briefly read them?
Sure, sorry.
So what I was going to suggest under LU6, which is that we would evaluate and continue to reduce or eliminate off-street parking requirements, particularly in areas near transit, along commercial corridors, and in mixed-use districts. And second bullet, consider replacing minimum parking requirements with parking maximums or flexible context-sensitive standards to better align with actual demand and support more productive uses of land. So those are 2 bullet points for LU6, which currently does not have any bullet points. And that's a big enough change that I didn't want to just send it as a grammatical correction.
Could you read those one more time?
That's on page 76, right?
LU6 is on page 76, and I'm adding as 2 bullet points to it. Evaluate and continue to reduce or eliminate off-street parking requirements, particularly in areas near transit, along commercial corridors, and in mixed-use districts. And second, consider replacing minimum parking requirements with parking maximums or flexible context-sensitive standards to better align with actual demand and support more productive uses of land. And just as a comment, the previous master plan had language supporting essentially this idea, and I just thought it would be smart to keep something specific in.
Wonderful.
I just want to note that the previous article had that, but we had it at 1.5 parking spaces per unit or something like that, or it was a funky number ratio for bedrooms. And we have since then greatly reduced it down quite a bit. And I think we are still continuing that, but I don't think we have to be so specific to say that, because I don't, well, that's my opinion.
For residential, we've actually made a lot of progress in the last 10 years. It was, like varying for apartments, but 2 spaces for single or 2 family, or maybe even 3 family. And now we've got it down to 1 per space.
We could also reduce it further.
But the commercial parking minimums are very suburban. One, unless you really want
commercial spaces.
for pure commercial spaces. And I mean, the dimensional regulations for pure commercial are not all that favorable, except maybe for little bits in the industrial district. So we really don't get a whole lot of them, except where there are big parking lots. I think that would, if there were to be more uptake on pure, or non-residential building, completely non-residential buildings, parking would be a challenge, especially on some of the smaller lots. So I do I do think there's more work to be done there.
For commercial.
Yes.
I 100% agree that having something more specific is a great idea, really important. I think for commercial, I absolutely agree with Steve. I think at least continuing to assess and evaluate and look at even for the residential. I think because over the next 10 years, I suspect Arlington is going to evolve, and maybe we are where we want to be, but maybe we're not yet. So, but if we're looking at the commercial, we may as well just keep it open and be looking at everything.
Yeah, I'm very much in agreement.
So in generally, we're all supportive of the 2 extra bullets you want to add.
I just want to say that I'm in agreement, because I would love to get rid of the transportation demand management in the future because it's not predictable for developers, and I would love to be able to get to that. And I think it works well in concert with some of the goals of extending the off-street parking permitting.
So we're okay with making that change. And not having them come back and resubmit again.
Great.
Mhm.
I'll
Yes.
send it to you, Claire.
Sounds great.
Are you okay with what we said? And
He's going to send, he's going to send.
Vince
I
will
have
send-
no
Vince will
objection if
send the
they correct
language.
I have no objection if they correct my grammar or anything like that. I think it's the intent that is.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're all on board here, because I don't want to vote on something that's not gonna, it's not exactly what we want, right? I want to take it, I want to take the time to make it right, you know, okay. So with that said, do I have a motion to approve this comprehensive plan as amended and as changes will come forth for town meeting? Is that way, or how do you want to phrase it?
Can I get a motion to approve the Arlington Comprehensive Plan dated May 4th, 2026 as amended as the official guide for the future growth and development of the town?
What she said.
So moved.
Second,
Okay, Vince,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Steve,
yes.
Rachel,
Yes.
I'm a yes too, okay?
I'm crying, Barry.
Congratulations.
A lot of hard work. Thank you very much. Okay?
Thank you.
We got about 17 minutes before, sorry, there's more, I want to congratulate you.
So I will need to leave a few minutes early because Vince and I, because we have to get clickers and stuff like that.
We can,
She'll get you the clickers.
Well, no, they have to pick them.
They have to-
They have to pick them up.
I'm not allowed to get anyone else's clicker, sorry.
I thought you were in with the people there.
I am, so then I just in with breaking the law.
Okay. So let's go over the motions.
To be fair, it would be a slight miracle if they were to get through everything to get us to all of these zoning warrant articles before our next meeting.
Can we just at least look at 44?
We can look at anyone.
Let's look at 44 and 47.
Mhm.
Okay, that has the realm of possibility. If we don't finish, we don't finish, but at least
Mhm.
I feel better that we looked at it, okay?
Yeah.
And then we'll address 53 and 55 at our next meeting. Where do you want to introduce those?
Oh, yes.
Because I don't have it here.
Do you want to plug in?
Sure. So Article 44, this is the one that Gene reached out to you all and said he had some concerns about how, that's on my other side here. And had some concerns about, building height and how the, main motion language was reading.
Oh, that's 47.
Oh, excuse me, Article 44,
Floodplain district
floodplain district.
definition.
He wanted to add definitions to adding a definition of base flood to the definitions associated with floodplain. I'm sorry.
Well, let me ask you what she's trying to do. Do you agree with that, Steve?
Yeah. I think that's his definition is, he took it from the FEMA's glossary. And, he is correct in that the main motion uses it a bunch of times, but, it's not defined.
And does,
David Morgan.
yeah, David Morgan agrees with that, do you know?
David Morgan agrees.
Okay. I'm with those two agreements, I'm all set. Anybody else?
Great. Sounds great to me.
no objection.
47?
Take it 47.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
no, great,
47
good.
is the one I was trying to explain before, where Gene had some concerns about, the wording in the main motion language and how it might be interpreted, with respect to building height. The effect of this amendment is the definition of building height and the ZBL will be as follows when applied to the recommended vote of the redevelopment boards. Provide the lowest habitable floor is elevated to or above the base flood elevation.
Does anybody know if habitable floor is clear? Like, how would the building inspector interpret that? I'm just curious, there's a gym near the Alewife Brook and the bottom floor is a CrossFit space.
That's not housing.
But your interpretation is it's housing. See, habitable floor to me is that housing or is that just a occupiable space?
I thought this was for housing.
Gene's concern was that it could be applied to commercial buildings. And I thought that the intent of his amendment was to make sure that it was applied only to like houses. I'm just wondering if habitable floor in Steve?
So, I had some back and forth with Christian about this. And one of the challenges the ZBA ran into when permitting a building in the, floodplain was that building code does not allow habitable floors below the base flood elevation. So that's why they had to raise it up. So, if it's a building code thing, I suspect that the building inspector would, have an interpretation. I sort of read this as bootstrap and suspenders, and I feel comfortable with it. And my recollection from an email conversation with Mr. Klein is that he was also okay with it.
Yeah, habitable floor, any floor usable for living purposes. I'm gonna try to look it up in the building code. Sorry.
Okay, do you mind if I? Shannon,
I'm okay with this.
Steve,
Yep, fine.
Rachel?
I have the same questions as Vince in terms of how habitable floor is defined and whether we're creating a requirement that precludes others from taking advantage of this section of the code in terms of building height. But again,
I'm just, from my experience, I did some projects down at the Seaport, the Echelon. And the floodplain there is definitely above retail spaces. Okay, and the retail spaces were allowed to go in, the restaurants, all the other stuff, and they said habitable. To me, is my interpretation of it is bedrooms, living room, where people live. Businesses didn't count because if it's flooded out, it's flooded out. But we put up $1 million worth of flood protection there, but that's a separate issue. But but we can. We're not there yet. Okay, I think we're fine. I'm okay with just leaving this way it is now, and we can address it again. When's our next meeting?
The 18th.
18th,
New York.
and then will this be after the 18th, you think, maybe, or before?
I think that we
In
will
New
likely
York.
get here before the
That's right.
18th. Budget night is Wednesday, but we'll be back at zoning on Monday, the 11th.
Okay.
Minute names in there.
or if you get the zoning,
If we get to
article
zoning,
are you on?
we're on Article 30.
I think Minuteman maybe that
Oh,
Monday.
Minuteman is Monday,
It's the 11th, and it won't pick up the whole night. but-
right.
Now, we don't define habitable, but we do use the phrase non-habitable twice in the bylaw.
Did you have any luck finding it on the codes?
I'm looking in the building code.
So this is Foxborough, but but I couldn't find it in ours. Foxborough says habitable floor is floor area, interior space of a dwelling unit designed, intended, or adapted to be used for sleeping, eating, food preparation, and other living areas. And that actually mimics what I was just Googling, and several New York municipalities had exactly the same language. So
Very similar to Boston.
The state building code defines habitable space as a space in a building for living, sleeping, eating, or cooking. It excludes bathrooms, toilet rooms, halls, storage, utility spaces, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, I guess it's pretty clear that it's residential space, and that, for example, unfinished basement would not count as a habitable floor. So I think I'm fine with it.
So everybody's fine? Then we'll just leave it in,
Okay.
okay?
Great.
And if we, hopefully these two will get, whatever, and
We
then,
may get here tonight.
and then,
We've already discussed the cooling, substitute motion, did we discuss the Holloman one? What's the Holloman?
No.
Okay.
What about 53?
I don't think we did 53 last
Can we,
time,
can we talk about,
because they changed their definition. They hadn't submitted it yet.
yes, they had,
53 and 55, we did not have copies of the last
Right,
time.
because he hadn't,
they submitted, but he
Check it
didn't,
for
he didn't check it up yet.
Found that very wordy.
53. This is 53.
So Steve, what we have right now is, we took a vote on this, and it wasn't unanimous, it was,
4-1.
4-1 thing. Our interpretation of definition is enclosed spaced,
Mhm.
based on there's a lack of, definition. There was a lack of, it's not in the codes, or it's not, and it was, and then,
We had a discussion and we all talked about it and we came to a conclusion.
okay. And,
This is
Rick-
different,
yes,
what they're proposing now.
well, I'm just want to go from what we voted on in the
Before.
past,
Okay,
okay? And then this one now says, is a little different, right?
it's completely, so rather than, they are attempting to address our concern that it was not defined, by
Right.
rather than using a term to define exactly what it means.
They're defining it.
They are
They're
defining it.
making the
Yes.
definition.
And it's in the ground floor level, it refers to two-dimensional areas of surface structures, from the outside of exterior walls and exterior columns and firewalls projected onto the ground, including cantilevered portions of the structure above, structures from excluding the edge of roofs, overhangs, exterior walls, and excluding open decks, as well as balconies that overhang the exterior wall. So they're defining what they think is, okay?
Building.
And that's what the change is. They're
Mhm.
adding that to it. Okay, so what's our feelings toward that? Just that change, not the change of lack of square footage and everything else.
Well,
Okay, see,
It's functionally, it's worded differently, but it's still the same thing as last year's no net loss of commercial space that essentially wanted, 60% of, the building footprint or the horizontal projection of the outline of the building onto the ground plane, however you want to say it, it's, I object for the same reasons I did last year, whereas I just don't think it's going to be practical in too many cases.
we have a defined term, oh, I'm sorry. I'm
Oh,
out of
no.
order.
no, okay,
We have
You
a
don't-
defined term in the bylaw, which is building area, which means exactly what they're saying, except it says it already in the bylaw, so you could just use that term, building area.
we have it defined in the,
It's building area is a defined term in the bylaw that is only used in the calculation of building coverage. But it is building area, if you look at the definition, it's essentially exactly that. So now they're adding a new way of saying the same thing.
no. One is definition of a building area. This one's the definition of
Which is just inclusive.
ground floor.
Right.
No, everything is the ground floor, because the MBTA community said 6% of the ground floor, not 6% of the building area. They took 6% of the ground, they
Building.
took it from the state code, building area. And I made a point saying that you can't, it's two different things. So they just took out the word building area and stuck in ground floor. That's how they got that definition there.
So I think that the big difference for me from no net loss of commercial
Mhm.
spaces is that so we excluded business districts in the MBTA overlay district. So any new commercial is a net gain.
Mhm.
Because we excluded everything that was commercial. So in order to get the bonus, which is significant, especially in some of these small lots, in some of these, in some of these, lots that are bounded by other residential properties, maintaining the 60% threshold, which was set as something that needed to be achieved
Mhm.
because it was a significant bonus, much like the additional, the additional percentage for, affordable units, that is an investment that we need to maintain. That this is different than the commercial districts where, there already is existing commercial. The threshold is, we are not losing commercial
Mhm.
by them not, by this being a, provision that they need to, that they need to create a significant commercial area. It has to be a meaningful commercial area that they are creating in order to qualify for the bonus.
Can I,
That's an additional perspective that I have not.
and I'm gonna give you my perspective. My perspective is there was three of us that was still on the board right now, that was part of the MBTA communities. Me, Steve, and Shannon.
I wasn't all.
He wasn't on the board,
Yeah.
but there's four of us. Okay, when we discussed establishing the 60% ratio, and we went around this, we went from 45, 50% up to 60, up to 80%.
Yep.
And we
The
ended,
meetings.
and we ended up at 60% because we thought that it was a fair number that, so that it allowed the buildings above to put in all the stuff that they needed, which was the lobby, the fire command center, elevator control room, the bike room, the trash room, all this stuff, so that you can have both. Okay, and when we thought what the 60% was the enclosed space, not the footprint of the building. So, because once you include the footprint of the building, I know I would have not went for 60. I would have went for less, because there's no way that's gonna happen, because when you do 6%, that's basically a kill pill. You essentially say, we're not gonna have businesses, we're not gonna encourage businesses in buildings, so we're not gonna give them the bonus. That's, to me, I'm just,
I think 126 to 128 disproves what you just said, because they would have been there had they reclassified the space that we asked them to, and they would have hit their parking.
that is
So-
for the bigger
Okay,
spaces.
the parking that can want it.
No, including the parking,
spaces.
they were very, very close, and they didn't calculate it properly. And I think if we had asked them to do it, they were right there on the threshold. And so I think that proves that this is achievable. And again, when we were holding the meetings, this is what Jean and I, who were on the board, understood to be the definition.
Well,
One thing that folks should do when you get a chance is to take a look at the Macaluso substitute motions for this and Article 55, because I think they address some of the board's, some of the concerns about ambiguity in the language, and they also kind of add a guardrail against a project that has a really small, for example, ground floor. So it establishes a minimum, which I think is part of the concern of the proponents of this substitute motion, but it also provides a definition of how we calculate ground floors that matches better with the board's interpretation. That is the majority.
where is that? I don't have that.
So it's in the materials for this meeting.
It was posted as a meeting? Okay, let me look at that.
Remy,
This-
Ms. Macaluso.
Not been vetted by the moderator at this point.
No, they're not officially before the
Yeah.
meeting. Ms. Macaluso just sent them to the board for
Exactly.
Okay,
review.
that one there, okay.
We're keeping it as correspondence.
Okay, that's-
For
that-
now.
I-
You can discuss it.
I didn't read it. No, we don't have to. We're out of time. We're gonna go to a joint town meeting. We'll talk about this more. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.